How are
Hi.
you?
Good. How are you?
I'm I'm fantastic, thank you.
Good, good. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I've been listening to your podcast for years and years, and being like now being here is a little bit surreal, but I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I've been listening to it for years too. And it's always surreal for me. Okay, now if you're listening, I am talking to Aixa Oliveras in Miami, Florida. How'd I do on the pronunciation?
Perfect.
Yeah?
Like you're one of the few people that gets it right the first time. It was perfect. Thank you.
Oh, good. Uh, well, I'd love to claim
Mhm.
credit, but I have YouTube to thank for that. There are
Oh.
a few different pronunciations, apparently, depending on what part of Spain one comes from. Apparently, in Catalonia, it's pronounced Asha. You probably know
Hmm.
all this, but yeah,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah. Sometimes it's Aisha, sometimes it's Asha, but
Yeah,
in Puerto Rico it's Aixa.
Aixa. Yeah, good.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Well, we're off to a good start. I got that bit right. Now, just to give you a time context for our conversation, today is Friday, the 4th of August, 2023. And for someone listening who hasn't seen your work, how would you describe it, Aixa?
It's mostly figurative work, using the human figure a lot, very symbolist. It's mostly symbolic narratives using color, pattern, and gold leaf.
Right. Yes,
Mhm.
very good. I concur. I think you covered it. So, just to sort of put you on the map artistically, who are the sort of people that have influenced you? And are they all painters or does it expand out beyond painting?
That's a big list. Mostly, like my main influences are everything from the symbolist period. This was like around the end of the 19th century, like Gustav Klimt, Alphonse Mucha, also a lot of Art Nouveau influence. And in terms of the themes of my work, like right now, I'm exploring more like the surrealistic, spiritual side of things. So that's also becoming an influence in my paintings. But yeah, mostly like exploring identity and rebirth and like how does that look like? How does that feel like? All through that contemporary symbolist lens.
Right. Now, you'll have to educate me a little bit. I know all the painters that you talked about, but I don't know too much about the symbolist movement. Tell me a bit about that.
Okay, so it kind of coexisted at the same time as Impressionism. And you have like the Impressionist works, it's all about the impression of a scene and the feelings of a scene put in color. And then you have the Symbolist, where it's more about the internal feelings, it's more psychological, it's more dreamlike, otherworldly, and it's more about exploring that mysterious, mystical side of life. So you have these two movements coexisting with each other. And Impressionism has taken a little bit more of the limelight, but now I feel like symbolist works are becoming more known and more in the spotlight. Like you have like a lot of Gustav Klimt's works. There's also, I think, Belgian or from the Netherlands, artists from there, like Fernand, and I'm probably going to butcher his name, but Fernand Knopf is one. Um, Felician Ropes is another. And yeah, it's all about that mystical side of things. And I've just really always gravitated towards that since I started creating art, because that's what fascinates me, like that mystical side of things. Like, what does it mean to like the nature of being human, and that the subconscious and all those like archetypes and symbolism, like all of that stuff fascinates me, and that's why I gravitated towards them. So yeah, that's mainly what symbolism is about. And it actually kind of was like a precursor to surrealism because the surrealists saw this and it's like an influence on them to start exploring the psychological aspects and yeah, the dreams and the symbolism of dreams and have it things like kind of um, like come out of you like not instantaneously like spontaneously, there you go, like come out of you spontaneously. Yeah,
Yeah,
sometimes my English and my Spanish get mixed up in my head, so I have to take a moment.
that's fine. That happens to me too, and I don't even speak
Mm-hmm.
Spanish, so
Yeah, it's one of the things about having a bilingual mind, I guess.
yeah, I can
but
only
but
imagine.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. When you were describing it, I thought, yeah, that you could draw a straight line from what you're describing in the symbolist movement straight to the surrealists. It's like they were doing very similar things, but just more, I suppose, a bit crazier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with like symbolists, they were still kind of like following like the rules of realism in a sense, like depicting
Yeah,
like the way that it looks is the way that I'm going to paint it. But with
yeah,
surrealists, they just threw all that out the window. Yeah.
yeah. So speaking of crazy, were you shocked when you saw a picture of Gustav Klimt for the first time? Because I
Um,
was.
I wasn't, but yeah.
You weren't. Okay, well that's good. You're obviously more open-minded than I am because, like I've seen lots of Klimt's work, and I just sort of had this impression of him that he, probably dressed a little bit like Oscar Wilde or something like that, or just, the time that he came from, everybody was so buttoned down and repressed that he just looks like a wild man
Yeah.
out of his time.
hmm Yeah, that one picture that I remember of him, he's holding his cat and he's basically dressed in like what it looks like basically like a muumuu, like those big flowing robes,
Yeah,
that
every picture I've seen of
uh-huh.
him, he's wearing the big smock,
Uh-huh.
the sort of thing Oud Nerdrum wears all the time.
Mhm.
But nobody else was wearing them around that time. I mean, nobody's wearing them now, but now we're a bit more, you can wear whatever you like. But back then, everybody was very starched collars and corsets.
And he's there with a muumuu.
What's a muumuu?
A muumuu is like, like a big smock. Yeah, I think that's what we call it in Puerto Rico, like a
Ah,
big
okay.
a big muumuu.
Yeah, well, no,
Yeah.
I think that
hmm
probably would fit for him. He's wearing a big muumuu. And maybe you know more about him than I do, but from what I've read, he didn't just dress crazy. He was a bit of a wild man of his in his life, in his personal life as well.
Yeah, he was like a bit of a rebel, really, because he started off like doing very classical, academic, classical work. And as time went on, I think he just got tired of doing the classical stuff. And he went more into, yeah, like exploring more like the nitty of life and showing how those feelings that he felt about life. And some people didn't like that. Like there's one series of paintings that actually got burned up in World War II. Like they're lost, they're totally gone. But I think it was for a university, a commission. And I think one was medicine and another one was philosophy. And these people were expecting like these very respectful, versions of medicine and philosophy. And he shows up with these giant canvases of people swirling around up into space and like a variety of people. You have young people, old people, and to those people, it was like scandal. Like they even called him like a pornographer.
Yeah,
Like
right. Yeah,
they were so scandalized. And they're
yeah.
beautiful
He
paintings, though.
he did have a lot of. I'm trying to be kind here. Relationships with lots of different women. I think he
Mm-hmm.
was married, but he was kind of known for doing that. So that probably didn't help on the PR
Yeah.
front.
Yeah. It's like more scandal.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
How does Mucha get included in that group, the symbolist group? Because from what I know of Mucha, I wouldn't like. I get it with Klimt, but not Mucha. Is it all his work, or just was there work that he did that's not as well known?
Well, he's mostly known for like the posters that he did
Yeah.
for the Sarah Bernhardt, I think
So,
is her
yeah.
name, the actress.
Yeah.
But he did develop a body of work separate from that. Like there's
Okay.
the Slav epic, where I think it's in
Oh, that's
Prague.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I'd
Yeah,
forgotten about that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like these big canvases, all talking about the history of the Slavs and what they went through, and that has a lot of like mystical elements happening. And I there was this Kickstarter for a book. I think his name is the author Thomas Negoivin, I think. But he put together, because he's a scholar too of that time period, and he put together this book on Alphonse Mucha's work and explaining the the themes behind his work and all the symbolism. And through that book, like it tells you, like he was actually really into mysticism, and I think he was a group of belonged to a group of Freemasons at some point, so he was really into that mystical exploration of life. And it's
Yeah.
not
Right.
readily apparent in the posters, but even in the posters, you see a little bit of those hints of symbolism there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely have an ethereal quality to them for sure. That's probably
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the things that makes them so beautiful. I think is that ethereal quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's also what attracts me to it too, that ethereal quality of them. Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So as I said, is it just painters, or do other art forms influence you, or other things influence your paintings?
Um, right now, I'm like looking more into like the intuitive, spiritual side of things. I think it's like probably because of the pandemic, like the pandemic was, as well as to everybody else, was a pretty rough time, and um, I I developed anxiety during that time. Like had to go to therapy for it and everything to like help calm me down.
Mm-hmm.
And and spirituality is something that's interested me, like always interested me. But during the pandemic, it kind of like I used it as a resource to basically like give me some perspective and to calm the anxiety.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I meditate, and also, yeah, like keeping that sense of spirituality with me also influences my work. I think that's why some of my work seems a bit like, yeah, like ethereal or a little otherworldly, because that's always present in my mind, and yeah, and also things like just questioning like the nature of reality, like quantum physics, the whole multiple parallel worlds theory. I
Mm-hmm.
actually have a painting in mind, an idea for that. Yeah, and just all of that stuff just fascinates me. Yeah, so I think like other than painting, that would be it really. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of my that's my main work. That all that stuff. So you're
Uh,
I totally relate to what you're saying.
mhm.
Um.
Yeah, I've
So
seen like the account. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, that I've seen the other the I think it's called Further Emergence, your other
Yes, it
Instagram
is.
account.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I've been enjoying the posts there. Yeah. it's kind of like in line also with what I've been thinking about, like, yeah, lately. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So what's your backstory? How did you end up being an artist? When did it all start?
Wow. Okay. So I wasn't like when I was little, I didn't really think about being an artist. I thought I wanted to be like a doctor or a pediatrician. And looking back, I think it's because the human figure has always fascinated me. But back then, I wasn't thinking, oh, I want to be an artist. I thought about being a pediatrician. And yeah, it just spontaneously, it just kind of came out. I would start copying comic books or start copying photographs, like draw them on my own, like for like as a hobby. And like I think, yeah, it was my mom that saw them. I did a drawing of my great grandmother, and my mom saw it, and she's like, "Oh, you're an artist. Like this is what you're going to be." and and I was like,
Oh, I love
"Really?"
your mom.
Yeah, like I love her too. A lot of people love my mom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've talked to loads of different artists, and I've heard all versions of that story. But I have there's a special place in my heart for parents who look, who see their children's work and go, "Oh, you're an artist." I mean, I'm sure lots of parents do that, and the children don't end up being artists. But for the ones that do, it's just so encouraging.
Yeah, she's always been very supportive. Yeah, she's like my number one cheerleader.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. But yeah, that's when I first started to get the inkling of like, well, maybe I can do this. Let's keep exploring this. And I
So,
just, mhm.
what age were you?
um, I probably was around maybe 10 or 11 years old
Okay.
at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just kind of developed from there. Like I enjoyed it so much. And I remember I think it was a math class. I'm not sure if it was math, but the assignment was to do like a grid and then a grid on paper and then put that same grid on a photo that you pick and then transfer it from there to the final paper.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually a Jergens ad.
A
Yeah,
which ad?
a Jergens ad for like body lotion, and the lady was covered in like mud, and it was dry mud, and it was cracked, like all cracked and everything. And then the
Okay.
top of her, she was looking fine, and then like I transferred that, and I got like every single like wrinkle and crack of the mud
Crack.
and
Yeah. Wow.
everything. And then I showed the teacher, and she was like, "Wow." Like she was really like really impressed by it. And I think that's another thing that kind of pushed me like, this is actually really fun. I want to keep doing this. Yeah. And it just kind of developed from there. So it's not like I was one of those people that instantly knew that that's what I was going to be. It
Yes.
just sort of like came out of me, but in a way it's very lucky that I'm very lucky that it did, because I didn't have to spend the rest of like my teenage years or my adulthood trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life or what I'm good at, because from very young age I already knew what I was good at.
Yeah.
So yeah, in that sense it's very lucky. Yeah. But yeah, after that it just kind of flowed from there. I lived in Miami for a time when I was in my teen years. I kind of jumped around a lot. So in my senior year of high school, I moved to Puerto Rico to be with my dad. And then from there, I spent like 10 years there and got my undergrad in Escuela de Artes Plásticas. So it's mostly a school that's specializing just in art. And then after that, I worked on my art part time and also worked as an administrative assistant part time. And yeah, there just came a point where I felt stuck, like both personally and artistically, I felt stuck. And that's when I decided to move to California to get my master's in at Laguna College of Art and Design.
Right.
So from there, and that's where everything just kind of went boom, like both personally and artistically, because I was exposed to so many different um, like people, experiences, influences, and yeah, it's like my art bloomed while I was there. So yeah, I have very fond memories of Alcad. Yeah, because of that. It was like 2 years, like two intense
Mm.
years, but also two very good years because I had all that time just to paint. Like I didn't have to go to a job or anything else. It was just
Yeah, yeah.
like go to my studio and paint all day and then go home, chill, relax. That's it.
Was there? I've had a few artists on the podcast who went through the Laguna school. Were any of them in this going through at the same time you were?
um, well, I don't know if it was, yeah, it's probably not like at the same time that I went, but I had teachers who have been also on the podcast, like Natalia Fabia was
Yeah,
there. Um, Pam Wilson was also there.
yeah.
Um, I don't know if you've had Scott Hess or if
No,
Scott
I've tried
Hess.
to. I've tried to.
Um,
I've got in touch with them, but I never heard anything back. So if you're listening, Scott, check your email. Check your DMs.
check the DMs.
I reckon he's just really busy as well.
Yeah, that's probably why. Yeah. Um, but yeah, them and Joseph Todorovich is another. I don't know if you've had him on the
No,
podcast. No.
no,
Mm,
no.
yeah, beautiful paintings, just beautiful work. Um, but yeah, I had like those people like teaching at LCAD, and it's one of those things where again it's just very surreal because I'm coming from Puerto Rico, which is a very small island in the Caribbean. I've only like know about these people through the internet,
Yeah,
and then I go over there and they're right in front of me talking to me. And
yeah,
I was a little bit starstruck.
yeah. Talking to you about your
Yeah.
paintings.
Hmm. Yeah, like a little starstruck, and also like it felt a bit surreal because of that. But then you're like you spend more time with them, and then you're like, they're just people just like you know, and and yeah, it's fun. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so you go to Laguna. What happens then?
So I got my degree, and I stayed for there for another year, like teaching at LCAN. And then the pandemic happened and everything went nuts. Yeah. So that happened at that point. Yeah. Just totally crazy.
I
Um,
noticed. Yeah.
yeah, just a bit. Yeah. But yeah, so at that point, I was working at LCAT and I also had another job at it's like a paint and sip place where you're the instructor and then people come over to paint and also sip some wine, have some snacks while they paint.
Right.
Yeah. And so I worked there part-time as well. And but the pandemic happened and that job like had to
Yeah. That's the
close.
end of
Yeah.
sipping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the end of
In
sipping
groups.
wine in
In
groups.
groups. It's it switched to everyone guzzling wine at home on their
Hmm.
own.
Yep. Just in front of the TV, guzzling the wine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got laid off of that job and I still had the job at LCAD, but since things were so uncertain, I
Yeah.
didn't know if I was going to have like an opening teaching there in the fall. And I
Yeah.
already had this other job like closed, and all of my friends were moving away. I didn't have any family living there with me. So I was like, okay, the signs are saying that maybe I should go. Yeah. Yeah, I should go. And my mom's here in Florida, and a lot of my family is here in Florida. So I thought, well, until this storm passes, let me go back to Miami, and I'll go live with her, and basically get things sorted and wait for the storm to pass.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it was pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Do you find, this is off topic a little bit, but what I find it very curious, just because you were saying you're interested in like psychology and what goes on with people, how I find it very curious how it's almost as if it never happened. Like nobody talks about it.
Oh, I
Um,
know.
oh, you've noticed that too. Okay, it's not just me.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, anyone I've said that to, they go, "Yeah, isn't it weird? It was such a big deal, and now it's like you almost have. It's not like you have to remind people, but it's not something, like people talk about World War II more than all the lockdowns. I think,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know, maybe it's a collective trauma. We just want to forget about it or something, but it's very
Yeah.
curious.
It's kind of weird because
Yeah.
well, here in Florida, they were a little bit more relaxed when it came to the mask mandates and everything. But
Right.
we still like for example, when I'm teaching now at Miami-Dade College in Kendall, and on my first semester, I still had to put on a mask, and the students were putting on masks. And then I
Mm.
think it was in the spring of this year where I think everybody just said like the hell with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and they just like nobody wears masks anymore unless of course like you have a family member that's immunocompromised and then they come
Oh yeah.
and they wear the mask. But yeah, it's very weird. It's like almost like it didn't happen, but it did.
Yeah.
And I think it is because it was very traumatic. Like we were like years, I think, yeah, like years being with the 6 feet apart, and you got to wear a mask, and this whole like paranoia of what if I catch it? Oh my God, I'm not vaccinated yet. Like
Yeah.
all of this
Yeah. Yeah.
stress, yeah, it is traumatic, and I think as a collective, I don't think we've gotten over that trauma yet. We're kind of putting like a veneer over it and
Mm.
pretending that things are okay on the surface. But I think like underneath, there's still a lot of that like pent up anxiety and stress because of what happened. And yeah, I think it's just going to take some time for people to come to terms with it and yeah, just integrate it and come to terms with what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I when all the lockdowns happened, I thought, wow, what an unusual thing. Because like I meditate regularly. I've been interested in meditation and consciousness and all that kind of thing for many, many years. And as I say, it's my main kind of work. So when everybody was in the whole world, or a lot of the world, went into lockdowns, I thought, wow, it's almost like an enforced meditation retreat. Everyone's gonna have to. They're being forced to look inward, and then the signs of how stressful that was on people began to kind of come out in the a huge upswing in the amount of alcohol that was being consumed, and the huge upswing in domestic violence. And you could tell, like, oh yeah, people don't want to be introspective, they don't want to look at this stuff. But I kind of thought, oh, well, good things will come out of this. I know it's difficult now, but good things will come out of this, because when you self-reflect, you start to see things. But then as soon as the lockdowns finished, it was like everyone galloped out of their houses to try and get back to normal, like how things were before all the lockdowns was fantastic, which it wasn't. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there was still a lot of things we needed to sort out. And I kind of thought, oh, okay, so it didn't go that way. People didn't, self-reflect, or there wasn't, not en masse, and I kind of thought no more about it. But then I was only writing about it the other day. I kind of think that, hey, this Barbenheimer
Yeah,
phenomenon.
Barbenheimer. Oh, that's so funny to me.
Well, uh, as you know, like one of the things in the kind of spiritual life is the ability to be able to hold paradoxes. You know, like
Mhm.
there's paradoxes happen a lot in the spiritual life and even in emotional kind of maturity. To be able to hold two opposing viewpoints at the same time is a sign of, you know, like being able that your kind of consciousness or your emotional intelligence has expanded a bit. And I
Mhm.
kind of went, oh, okay, so here's a sign, here's a little shoot, you know, because, you know, the what led to the whole Barbenheimer thing was very pre-pandemic a way of doing things. You know, it was like Christopher Nolan left Warner Brothers or whatever, whichever studio it was, and went to another studio and then started to make Oppenheimer. And then the studio that he left said, "Okay, well, we've got Barbie, and we're gonna open both these huge movies on the same day, you know. So take that, Christopher Nolan." I think they thought there was going to be a lot of division and camps and, you know, pre-lockdown kind of way of thinking of like you're either for Oppenheimer or you're either for Barbie. And instead, you had this whole thing where people just embraced both. You know, two
Mhm.
very on the surface
Very
anyway.
different.
I haven't seen either of them, but you know, I don't think I need to. I mean, I will when it's easy to do so. But they just seem like very different movies, and yet like everybody just embraced these two opposing things. And I thought, oh, okay, well that's something.
Mhm.
That's a little shoot of what came out of all the lockdowns.
Yeah, I think it's like they're so different, and I think people have fun like combining them because they're so different. I think that's where a lot of the humor of it comes in. And I
Mm,
think people also need a little bit of humor and a little bit of fun, like
yes.
especially considering everything that happened then and everything that's happening now. And just putting like those two things together that couldn't be more different into
Yeah.
one thing. It's just hilarious.
Yeah.
But also like it speaks to that, like holding two opposing perspectives at the
Yeah.
same time. And instead of being like, no, this is the good one, or this is the one
Yeah.
that I want, they're more like, let's just put them together and have fun with it. So yeah, I feel like that's a positive sign. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think if the exact same thing had happened before the lockdowns, it would have there would have been division. I don't think it would have happened in the way that it did, you know. And because it just
Yeah.
happened so organically, you know.
Hmm. It would have been more like Barbie versus Oppenheimer versus
Yeah.
Barbenheimer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how does the idea for a painting start for you? And how do you collect the little wisps of not inspiration, but just the little things that light up on the inside that kind of we add together to make a painting? You know, like, are you a sketchbook person? Do you write things down? Do you make little voice memos? How do you collect the ideas that go to make up a painting for you?
Well, actually, that process has changed a little bit. Before, I would, because I have a tendency to be very analytical. So before, I would do like research and I would like write things out and put on my sketchbook those ideas along with like little sketches. But now it's kind of switched to something a little bit more intuitive, where, because I'm trying to explore that side of me more, where I have like, say, for example, I have this painting that I'm working on right now, and the theme is breathing, like air and breathing.
Okay.
And so I just put on my sketchbook, okay, so what makes you think of breathing? What makes you think of air? And just not overthinking it and just letting my hand go, my hand write. And so for this particular painting, it was peacocks, it was clouds, like ocean breeze. So from those symbols, then I start putting in the figure just again intuitively, whatever comes out of my head. That's what I
Mm.
start to sketch. And I feel like it feels a lot more freeing because I'm not trying to put it into this one box. Like it has to be like this and it has to fulfill all of these requirements. It's more like free flowing. Like whatever comes out onto the paper, we're just gonna keep drawing and we're gonna keep exploring and seeing what comes out. So that's more of the process that I'm using right now. Yeah. And then from there, then I start to either look for the models or if I don't have models available, I'll do the reference photos myself using myself as a model and then like figuring out the props, things like that. But the kernel of the idea starts like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you always work from photos or do you work from life as well?
Right now, since I don't have a lot of models available like near me, I don't work from life, although I would love to. I kind of miss it. I have worked from life before, but mostly I work from photos now. And the one reason that I find it also really convenient is because I can combine different photos in Photoshop into this one composition and then draw or paint from that. So
Right.
like I use like stock images, things like that, compared like combined with my own pictures, and then I create this totally like new image that didn't exist before. And then from
Yeah.
there, I use that as my reference image for my painting. Mhm.
Yeah. Do you do everything on that composite image that you do in Photoshop? Meaning, like, do you do color studies as well, or do you sort out all the color values on photo in Photoshop?
I used to do color studies before, but then I was like, I'm using up a lot of paint. Paint is expensive. I need to save up for the paint. So I figure out all the color on Photoshop first on the picture, and then I use that. Yeah, I find it
Right.
quicker too. Mhm.
Yeah. How do you get the image from the whatever you're looking at it on in Photoshop monitor, laptop, iPad? How do you get it from that onto the canvas? Like, what's your drawing phase look like?
Okay. Well, it depends on how complex the composition is. So, if it's a very simple composition, then I'll just draw it freehand with paint onto the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of this one that I'm working on now, where it's a little bit more complicated, I'll do a drawing first on tracing paper. And then once I'm finished and I'm happy with it, then I do an oil transfer. So I cover that paper on the back with a thin layer of oil paint, usually burnt sienna. And then I put it back on the canvas and then transfer it using a color pencil. And
Yeah.
that's worked out really, really well because before I used to do it with like charcoal transfer or like chalk transfer. And it
Mm.
works, but then you have to trace everything all over again.
Yeah.
With the oil transfer, it's just on there. You wait for it to dry, and then you can start painting right on it. Mhm.
Yeah. Um. So, what do you use to look at your reference? Like, and the reason I'm asking is some people go to great lengths to set their monitor, the RGB values on their
Uh,
monitor. They're very specific about that kind of thing. What do you do?
um, Honestly, I don't really pay too much attention to that. Yeah, because I mean, I have the picture, but I'm not going to translate the color exactly the way it is in the
Yeah.
picture. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter what like color mode or anything. I mean, what I'm looking for is basically like an overall idea of the color. And then from there, I can add my own touch to it. And like, for example, I want this cloud to have a little bit more pink, even though it's got blue, or I
Yeah.
want this ocean. to have like iridescent paint in it. You know, that's not in the picture, but I'm adding that in because I feel like it's important to not be so um, like it's a word in Spanish. It's aferrada, meaning like not be a slave to your reference, basically.
Yeah.
And like take some artistic liberties with it
Yeah.
because that's where the artistry comes in.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you want to do an exact copy of the photo, that's great. That's totally valid too, but it's not what I'm looking for in
Yeah.
particular. Yeah.
Now you have a YouTube channel where you do all sorts of lovely things on it. Have you done a video on how you do your oil transfer?
No, and I should. I probably should.
Yeah, I'd like to see that video because
Yeah.
I understand what you said in principle, but I'd like to see it.
Hmm. Yeah, I actually have one on TikTok, but it's a very short video on how to do an oil transfer. But yeah, I
Okay.
should probably do one on YouTube. Yeah, because I didn't know about it until I saw other artists like, yeah, on Instagram post about it. And I was like, oh, that's actually a very good idea. Let me try it. And
Mm.
yeah, it works out very, very well. So yeah, you just gave me an idea for for a YouTube video. So yeah,
Good.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Mhm.
So, what do you like to paint on, substrate wise?
um, Usually either wood or aluminum. I used to paint on canvas, but the canvas is very springy. So whenever I
Yes.
I lay a brushstroke, it just kind of bounces back at me, and I'm kind of going like, no, don't do that. So,
Yeah, I'm
um,
starting to think there's two kinds of artists. There's artists who don't mind the bounce, and then there's artists who it bothers them. I'm one of the ones who it bothers, and it sounds like you are too.
yeah, the bounce bothers
Mm.
me.
I like the tooth though. Do you like the tooth of canvas?
Yeah, I do like it.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a portrait that I worked on recently. It's a portrait of my grandmother, and that's an aluminum
Mm.
panel, but it has linen adhered to it, so it has that
Yeah. You
tooth.
you use artifacts, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
artifacts.
Well, they
Yeah,
can just
they're.
do it. They can just do everything with aluminum panels. They can just cover it
Hmm.
in anything, and it's fantastic. It's
Yeah,
so
their
good.
surfaces are so nice. Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Because for me, it's like it's the best of both. I get the tooth or whatever surface you want, plus it doesn't bounce, and you can make it as big
Hmm.
as you like, and it can be light.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And with
Mm.
the linen, like I realized in this portrait, like it kind of breaks up the paint. So it's a lot easier to get those soft edges and that sense of like gradation and softness. It's a
Hmm.
little bit harder to get if it were just a regular aluminum panel.
Shiny
So it
panel,
made
yeah.
me it made me rethink things like maybe I should try more linen panels on ACM. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
because I
yeah,
really like the surface.
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
they have so many different. I mean, they're not the only ones that are doing it, but just because I know them, they have so many different things. You know, they've got egg tempura panels. They've got yeah, you name it. They can.
Hmm.
They've got a covering for it.
Yeah, they're very nice. Yeah, very nice surfaces. So I mostly paint on that and sometimes on wood. But yeah, canvas I've kind of like grown out of using canvas. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Um, this episode isn't sponsored by Artifacts, by the way, if you're listening. But I
Not
just happen to
sponsored.
know them. No, no, that was
Not
last year.
sponsored.
That was last year. Um, do you do a grisaille, or how do you paint? Are you do you do direct painting, or do you build up in layers, or what does it look like?
Mostly I do like indirect painting. So another thing that I've been like exploring recently, it's kind of like a grisaille, but instead of being like shades of gray, it's mostly using the burnt sienna and using that as my shadow color. And then uh, for the light masses, using lead white. So I would get the drawing really sorted out and then use the lead white for, say, for example, where the light is hitting on the forehead or like on the nose, like really developing the values and the tones using the lead white, and then having that lead white fade into the shadow, the midtones and the shadows with the burnt sienna. So I would build the painting like that and have a really nice like map of where all the light and the shadows are.
Yeah.
And then once that's dry, then I would add the color on top, like the color blocking. Because what the lead white does is that since the light is going to fall through those layers, is going to hit that lead white. And since it's white, it's going to be really like bounce back a lot brighter
Yeah.
towards your eye versus if it were just like say a burnt sienna under there, which is a darker color.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been using so far. And I learned this technique from one of the webinars that Eric Johnson put out. I think it was through there's this it's like this seminar called Vision X, and they have it every year. And he was one of the invited artists, and he showed us how to build an underpainting using that method. And yeah, I tried it and I loved it, and now I'm using it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is like technically, I think it is a form of grisaille. I think it's called a closed grisaille or a dead coloring or a dead layer. Is
Mm-hmm.
what they call it. So
Yeah, because
yeah.
before I would just wipe out the whites with like a paper towel and just expose the underlying white underneath of the panel.
Yes.
But like since I'm not using Gamsol or anything like mineral spirits or solvents, I've gone solvent free, and it was very hard for me to do that without solvents. So I discovered that method that Eric explained, and it worked out really really well because I have more control over where the light goes, where the shadows go. You know, I can modify things in that stage before adding the color, and I don't have to deal with like the solvent making things drip or the
Yeah. Yeah.
fumes or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Do you have a favorite color palette that you always start with?
Um, Sometimes I modify it based on the painting that I'm working on, but usually I have, let's see, lead white, definitely, yellow ochre, cad red. I also have rose madder. With the greens, it can again depend, but usually I use Verona Green Earth from Rublev, like natural pigments. Viridian, let's see, the burnt siennas, and then with the blacks, I just mix ultramarine blue with the burnt sienna, and it gives me this really nice chromatic black. Because the ivory blacks, they're nice too, but it tends to be kind of cold, like a cold black.
Yeah.
So with that burnt sienna and ultramarine mix, I can control how warm or how cool I want that black color to be. So I find it really nice to use that mix. Let's see. I think I use oleo gel to oil out. Yeah, this is not a sponsored ad for natural pigments, but yes.
I was going to ask you, is that where you get your lead white from? From them?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
have their lead white number two, and also their crystal white. I love their crystal white. Yeah, it just
I don't think
yeah.
anyone else is doing lead white in America, are they? Well, I don't know if anyone
Um,
else anywhere else you can get it.
yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's
Mm.
them and maybe Williamsburg, but I'm not
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And because you were saying about you're gone solvent free, how do you handle the lead white?
Well, with the lead white, as long as you're not breathing it in, it's totally fine. Like I
Yeah.
usually wear gloves while I'm painting. So if I get like lead white on my fingers or something, I can just take the gloves off and that's
Yeah.
it. But yeah, as long as you're not like breathing it in, or because I don't mull my own paints, I don't make my own paints.
Hmm.
So that's where the risk would be if you were like mixing and creating your own paints, and then you're not wearing a respirator, and then you're breathing that in. Yeah, that's not good. But but yeah, but as long as it's in that binder and nothing is evaporating, then you're totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you mentioned oleo gel. Do you have any other mediums that you like to use?
Um, Usually I don't. Usually I just, if I need the paint to be a little bit more viscous or more buttery, then I add maybe a couple of drops of linseed oil. But other than that, I don't really use mediums. I've tried using mediums, but it's kind of like, well, I can do this same thing if I just add a bit of linseed oil,
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of, yeah, it's not necessary, for the way that I paint. Yeah. So apart from oleo gel, I just use a little bit of linseed oil, and that's it.
Now, if you're thinking to yourself, God, I'm really enjoying this podcast. I've listened to a few now and they're brilliant. And there's so many of them. And I've learned so much from listening to them. And you know what? If I met that John Dalton fella in real life, I'd love to buy him a cup of tea and have a chat with him. I'd love to do that every month if I could. Well, now you can. The tea part at least, because this podcast runs on cups of tea bought for me by people like you who listen to the podcast and send me the price of a cup of tea once a month through the Patreon account. That's patreon.com/John Dalton Gently Does It, all one word. And if you're one of those people who already send me cups of tea through Patreon, thanks a million. The tea is lovely and I really appreciate it. Now, the great thing is that if you can't afford to send me the price of a cup of tea or you don't want to, that's fine. You still get exactly the same podcast for free. It's sort of an honor system where the people who can afford it and want to pay for the people who can't or don't want to. So it's all lovely. So if you'd like to send me a cup of tea once a month, you can do that through Patreon. I'd really appreciate it. It makes a huge difference to me. And what about brushes? Do you have a preference for brush shape or make?
Um, Usually filberts. Yeah, filberts are my go-to. I might use a fan brush from time to time to just like smooth some areas out. There's also this, I forget the name, but it's from Rosemary Brushes. It's kind of like a flat, but a very longish flat that kind of splays out at the end, and I can also use that to smooth over some areas. But when I'm laying in color, like for color blocking, the first thing that I use is the bristles, the hog bristles, like flat hog bristles, because that also gives me a nice texture, and I'm looking for a little bit of texture when I paint. And then on the layers afterward, then I'll use filberts or those like angled brushes that kind of look a bit like a triangle. I usually use them for areas like around the eyes, where the eye meets the nose, that shadow area. Like I'll use an angled brush there. Um, let's see. So yeah, filberts, sables, usually for like finishing touches for say like eyelashes or corners of the mouth, things like that. But I tend to like more like to have the brushstroke show through a little bit. I used to be very like flat, like gotta get it flat and very smooth. When I kind of grown out of that, so I'm looking more for like that texture and that brushstroke to show through a little bit. And yeah, for me, it's like the bristle brushes and the filberts help with that. Yeah.
All right. And any make? It's all the same, is it?
Make in the sense of like the brand.
Yeah, brand. Yeah.
Yeah. Usually Trakel, like Trakel and Rosemary. Yeah, those are the like my two go-tos. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, not sponsored by Trakel or Rosemary.
No.
No.
Just not sponsored by anybody.
Not
Okay.
sponsored by anybody.
Yeah. Um, do you use anything other than brushes for mark making?
um oh, Q-tips, actually. Which is kind of funny. Again, the things that you pick up on Instagram. Like I saw an
Mm,
artist using Q-tips to smooth out like areas. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, that's actually a really good idea. So
Yeah.
I use Q-tips mostly for when I want to smooth out an edge or like, yeah, smoothing out edges. Like for example, between like say the top of the head and the background. If I want to have that edge be a bit softer, then I'll just use a Q-tip and then either blot it or pass it over the edge. Sometimes I use a palette knife if I want to get more of that texture. I'll use a
Yeah.
palette knife. I've tried using like the what's it called? It's kind of like a squeegee,
Oh yeah.
where like people use it for when they're baking to mix
Oh,
the cake
spatula.
batter, like a spatula. Yeah, I've tried
Mm.
using those, but like the jury is still out on that one. I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep using that. But those are the types of things that I've used that are not brushes. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought I invented the Q-tip thing. And then you go and see, oh, everyone's using Q-tips
So
now.
now everybody's doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I find the Q-tips are good for like what you were talking about when you used to use solvents with the rag for taking things away.
Hmm.
Q-tips are very good for a bit of strategic paint removal
Hmm.
as well. I
Yeah.
found,
Hmm.
and makeup pads
Oh
are good for that
yeah.
sort of thing as well.
Yeah, that's one thing that I forgot to mention too, like the makeup sponges, like
Yeah, yeah,
especially for when you're putting in a layer, like you're oiling out and you're smoothing out that layer of
yeah,
oleo gel. Yeah, they're very good for that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Another thing I use is just household sponges, like you'd get for washing your dishes or whatever like that.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah, I haven't tried that.
It's good for blocking in really fast
Oh,
and just kind
interesting.
of dunk it in like you would like you know, you make a little puddle of the paint, dunk it in and just swish it over really fast,
Oh,
much
that
quicker
would
than
be
a
fun.
paintbrush. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
J-
fun actually. I might try that. Yeah.
mm, yeah, it's
Hmm.
good.
Hmm.
So what kind of palette do you have?
Oh, I bought this actually years ago. David Casson
Oh yeah.
put together a Kickstarter for the parallel palette,
Yes.
and I bought it when it came out. And it was actually because I had a bunch of stuff in Puerto Rico in my old apartment, and my dad sent them over to me. I think it was, yeah, earlier this year, and I got my parallel palette back, and I was very happy to get my parallel palette back because it's just so nice because you have it like in front of you as opposed to sitting on a table, and then you don't
Yeah.
have to look down and up and down and up again. You
Mm,
just like move your eyes instead of your whole head, and it makes it a lot easier to make that transition from the palette to the
yeah.
painting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
You don't have to
before,
light your palette as well, which is
yeah,
great.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
But before that, then I would just put, I had like I think it's called a New Wave palette that sits on my, uh, oh my gosh, I'm blanking out. On my table, thank you, on my tabouret.
Mm.
And I would mix the colors there and then paint from there. But I find the parallel palette a lot nicer because, yeah, I don't have to keep switching my focus down and up. It's more,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, more direct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, how do you check yourself as you're working? You know, like some artists like to turn the canvas upside down, or they're looking in mirrors. They got loads of mirrors around, or they're taking pictures on their phone, or getting their friends in to give them little critiques, or squinting, or what sort of things do you do?
Um, I usually take a photo. So I take a picture of the painting and then I flip it in the photo app to see if anything looks wonky. Yeah, because yeah, because it happens that you're looking at it for so long that you just don't really see it anymore.
Mm.
So you're looking at it, you think, oh, it looks okay, but there's still something that looks off. But you can't put your
Mm.
finger on it. So that's what I do. I take a picture and then I flip it like mirror image, and then I can see, oh, actually that eye is way higher than it should be, or
Yeah.
the nose is lopsided, things like that. That's how I catch them. Sometimes I have people come over, like say, for example, my mom or my brother. I'll ask them, like, does this look okay to you? Because I think it's good to get the feedback from people that are not artists,
Yeah.
because yeah, because they're not thinking in that way. They're thinking more like, oh, that face looks great. Or, oh, actually, no, something's weird. you know, Something looks weird here. Yeah. So they're
Yeah.
not thinking of like, oh, the glazes are looking a little bit too dark. Or the structure of
Yeah.
the eye is like this. No, they'll just tell you straight up, like, yeah, that looks weird. That looks off.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I find that a lot more
They've,
helpful.
they've no
Yeah.
respect for the hours that you put into it. They're just like, nah, that looks
No,
wonky.
that looks a bit wonky. No, but then they'll be like, oh, I think it's something with the nose or with the eye or something. And then you look
Yeah.
at it and like, oh, okay, now I see it. Yeah. So that's also super helpful. Yeah. Mhm.
Very good. What's your varnishing preference?
Gambar. So I usually go with Gambar and the gloss
Yeah.
varnish.
Gambar is the one that you don't have to wait for it to dry. You can once it's touch dry, you can use. Is it?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Do
So
you? How do
once,
you apply that?
yeah, usually with I have a brush from Rosemary's that is really nice and soft,
Yeah.
and I use that to apply the varnish, and it goes on really really nicely. I've actually been thinking of trying out the I forget. I think it's Conservar varnish from Natural Pigments,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, I haven't had a chance to try it out yet. But I'm thinking of just ordering a bottle and seeing how it compares to Gambar.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It does the same kind of thing, isn't it? You can use it touch dry.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah. Once it's touch dry, then you can varnish it. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Gambar is amazing stuff. I've never used it, but from what I've read about it and what people have told me about it, the fact that the paint continues to oxidize or dry, it's going dry
Hmm.
underneath.
Yeah,
How does it do that? Anyway, it's obviously
yeah.
magic.
Hmm.
Um, what kind of lighting setup do you have in your studio?
So right now I have like these studio lights that I bought on Amazon. They're probably more expensive now, but I bought two for like $40, and they give me really nice like cool light, so it's not too cool but not too warm either. And I set that up next to my easel along with the light that I have above. Because right now, the way that my studio is set up, like where I live, there's a lot of trees. So it's just good. It's great. But also, it blocks out some of the light coming in from the window.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's why I bought the studio lights. And that way I have both from above and from the side, I have that light. And that helps me with getting the right light for the painting. Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Um, are they? Did you just buy them and turn them on, or is there settings? Are they,
Oh no,
like
they're
daylight bulb? Again, it's because some people go into
hmm
great details about their lighting and the trouble they went
hmm
to with them.
yeah. I mean, Mine's are pretty like simple in that it's just you turn on a switch and that's it. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, I try
Okay.
to keep things like as streamlined and simple as I can because like painting is already hard enough with like all the things that you got to keep in mind, and
Yeah,
then also keeping in mind like, oh, is this at 5,000K? you
I
know,
know. Yeah.
is this too
I,
warm?
yeah, I use two floodlights for
Mm-hmm.
outside of a house. You know, the ones that illuminate your
Mm-hmm.
garden.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were just on special one time in the local shop thing. They have these like incredibly hot, long, skinny bulbs. They're for illuminating your garden if there's some
Mm-hmm.
prowler or if you're having a party. And then I just have lots of sheets of paper hung from the ceiling in front of them until I
Mm-hmm.
get it so that I'm not blinded and that the painting is, yeah, it looks about right. So just go on my
Yeah.
eyes, which sounds like
Mm-hmm.
about the same as what you do.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like as long as it works, it is fine, and that actually works really well because you're putting the paper in front of it, and that acts like a diffuser. It diffuses the light and it gives you a really
Yeah,
nice, soft light versus
yeah,
just the regular like light bulb. So that actually works really, really well. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Oh God, you couldn't have these things without some sort of diffusion. But
Yeah.
if you're listening, the paper is about 2 feet or 3 feet away from the thing. The light, it would just set fire to the paper if
Yeah.
it was close to it. So
It won't
I
catch
don't
on
want to.
fire.
I don't want to be responsible for any any fires. Um, what do you listen to, or do you listen to anything as you work?
I used to listen to like podcasts, but then I would get distracted by the people talking. So sometimes I still do it. I still do that, but mostly I just put music on, and I have very eclectic music taste. It could be like hard rock 1 minute, and then electronica and trance the next. Then you have alternative. So it's kind of like this mishmash of
Yeah,
things that I have on my playlist. As long as um, it's music that like motivates me and wakes me up, and it has a
yes,
little bit of energy to it, then that's what I tend to go for. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. How do you name your paintings?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it takes me a while because the thing with when I paint is that I might have the idea, but some again is this very intuitive where I won't know why I painted it after some time has passed after I painted it. And that's usually when the title comes in, where I figure
Hmm.
out, oh, this is what this painting is about. Because I have sometimes it happens where I'm doing something and paint something, and I don't know really why I'm painting it. I just know
Hmm.
that I got to paint it. Yeah. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
it's after the fact that once I sit with it for a while and I start to understand it, it kind of catches up with me. And then I go, okay, now we can name it this. So, for example, there's like this one painting, Phoenix Rising. It's the one with the bird. It's on gold leaf, and
yeah,
it's me in the front, and then the bird behind me in gold leaf. Well, that's one of those paintings where I didn't really know like the title of it or like what. I mean, I know what it's about, but like putting into words at
yeah,
that point, I couldn't really do that. But it's one of those where after some time passed, that's where it kind of came to me, and that's the title, like Phoenix Rising, because it is
yeah,
about rebirth and like rising from the ashes and, going from one phase of life to another. So that's where the title came from. But usually it takes me some time. Sometimes though it's very quick. Sometimes even in like a sketching phase that it'll come to me. And then other times it needs a little bit of time for me to process it, so then I can title it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice.
Mhm.
Uh, Ariane, I think that's how you pronounce that name. Ariane Camp on Facebook says she's amazing. Ask her how she
Aw.
makes going grey look so amazing. LOL.
Aw. Well, first of all, hi and thanks, Ariane. um,
Do you know her?
yes, yeah, I
Did I
follow
pronounce?
her.
I pronounced it right then. Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
hopefully. I hope so. Yeah, I hope I pronounced it well, right too. Um, yeah, the gray hair. Well, I've had gray hair actually since I was 15. I think it's like a
Wow.
genetic thing. Yeah, yeah. It's my mom also got gray hair um, when she was in her teens. It's totally white now for her, but when she was younger, she used to have like this chunk of hair in the front that was all white, and then
Oh,
everything
okay. It's
else,
very
yeah,
dramatic that when that happens,
yeah.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
great.
kind of like the Rogue from X-Men kind of look.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Or who's the other
Mm-hmm.
one? Cruella de Vil. That
Cruella
she's
de
that
Vil.
same kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose the X Men's are better.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it just came in early, and it wasn't until probably a year or two ago where it really started to go gray. Um, I think it was probably the stress from the
Hmm.
pandemic that made me go gray a little bit earlier. Yeah,
Okay.
but I'm embracing it though, because it's kind of like why I go through the trouble of going to the salon every month, getting it dyed. We already have so much white hair coming through, and I'm gonna have like a strip of white on the top of my head where everything else is dark. That's gonna look weird. So yeah, I was like, let's just leave it natural and work with it. And I like it. And people seem to like it. So yeah.
Yeah, good for you.
Mhm.
I always thought Andy Warhol was onto something. Like he consciously he didn't dye his hair grey, but he started wearing a grey wig very early on, way before he was actually grey. And his thinking was, I'm going to be ageless. Like I'm going to like once people get used to what I look like, then I'm going to look like that for the rest of my life. And he was right. It's not shocking, and it's not people don't kind of go, oh well, you're going grey now or whatever, because they're used to it from the time you're like in your 20s, which I think is when he started doing it. It's just that's just the way they look.
Yeah. And now it's practically become like part of his brand, really. It's like Andy Warhol, you think the white hair, the shock of white hair.
Yeah,
And I think he also wore like the sunglasses, and the very like nonchalant attitude that he had, So yeah. Hmm.
I wouldn't say nonchalant now.
No.
No, he was wound very tight. Was Andy? Yeah, he was. Well, he was kind of so. Well, he was so locked in that he was almost disassociative when he would talk. That's why he kind of sounded.
um,
He sounded very relaxed, or not relaxed, but a bit removed. But yeah, no, I've read some of his books, and yeah, there was a lot going on
yeah,
in
that's
there.
probably where I got the nonchalant feeling from. Because seeing it from the surface, you do see like this kind of relaxed, like I don't care kind of
Yeah,
attitude,
yeah,
But yeah, there's probably more going on under the surface there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, he was he was the first person that I heard articulate this thing of, you put 20 pairs of socks into the washing machine. You load the 20 pairs of socks into the washing machine. You unload the 20 pairs of socks. No one else is involved, and yet there's always one sock missing, and you can't find it. I was like, that's right. How does
It's
that
true.
happen? Where do all those missing socks go, you
Yeah,
know?
it's like the laundry fairy takes them.
Yeah,
Like,
more
yeah,
magic. It's
more
more magic.
magic.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you deal with self doubt?
Oh boy, that's a big one. So that's something that I still struggle with sometimes, the self-doubt. and the imposter syndrome. Because I am a shy person, I'm an introvert, and I used to be a lot more shy before than I am now. Like it's still a part of me, but it's still, I used to be more shy and had a lot of self doubt beforehand. Um, I think I've gotten better at it in that I've recognized more of my strengths as a painter and like the value that I can offer people and give people through my work. But I still get um, like periods of it where I'm doubting myself and like, is this really going to turn out right? Or should I really try out for that? And I think it's just ego. It's the ego talking. And it's one of the things that I've been working within myself to overcome and to manage, because there's the ego part of you where that wants to be safe and wants to be in the comfort zone. It's basically looking out for you and your safety. And then there's the other part of you, like the higher self, that just wants to do what you love and fulfill that vision that you have for yourself, like your purpose. And these two sides of you are like in conflict. So you have your ego not wanting you to do the thing that your higher self wants you to do because it's not safe, it's different. Oh, what if you embarrass yourself? What if it doesn't work out? What if it fails? All these what ifs. But what I've found, and I've taken courses on this, so this has been really helpful. What I found is switching your focus. It's all about focus. So switching your focus from what your ego is telling you to what it is that you love, the end result. So, for example, I want to try out for this art competition, but your ego is telling you, no, your work is not good enough yet, you're not going to get in, this is going to happen. Basically, like predicting your future based on what's happened in the past. So, when you feel like you're in that, switching focus to what you want your end result to be. So your end result would be, even if you don't get into the competition, people are still going to see your work. You're going to have curators or gallery directors looking at your work, and it's going to stay with them. So even if you don't win, that's still a positive result that you would get from submitting. So thinking of it in those terms, like switching your focus basically from what your ego is telling you to what you love, what you want and what you love, and your vision, what you want for your life. And that is what's going to help you like, like pacify like the self-doubt dragon, so to speak. Because yeah, because and it is a practice, like I'm still practicing it, and it's a daily thing. Because yeah, it can be tough being an artist. You have a lot of rejection. You have people telling you, oh, you're not gonna earn enough money. Oh, like your work is not good enough. Oh, like this and that and that and that. So there's a lot of messages coming in. It could be either from society or from friends, family, or even like fellow artists themselves that don't realize what it is that they're basically saying, because they're saying it from their own beliefs, their own belief systems. So it's realizing that, having the self-awareness to realize that's what's happening, and then switching to, no, I am capable, I can do it, and this is what I want. And not not giving up on that, not giving up on your vision and on what you want. So that's what's really been helpful for me. And like, I can't take credit for all of it because I've taken courses about this, because it is something that I've struggled with for the longest time. But through learning all those things, it's been really, really helpful. And sometimes I journal it out. It's really good to like get it out of your head and journal it, and then you can take a look at it the day after and be like, what the heck was I talking about? Like, like where did this come from? Like what the heck? And yeah, it just gives you more perspective on it. And then you realize, oh, okay, that's just a self-doubt talking. It's not real. It's not reality. Like having that self-worth, and also that sense of value in what you do, can really like steer you to that vision, to that true north, and help you with the self-doubt, because it's always going to be there, it's always going to pop up, but it's knowing how to manage it. That's the key.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What's the last piece of art you bought?
um let's see, it's been a while. It's been a while. I think it was, let's see, yeah, it was a print actually by Jennifer Balkan. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love her work. Hi, Jennifer, if you're listening.
Yeah, me too. Hi, Jennifer.
Hmm.
Okay. This is my desert island question. You're on a desert island. There's no one around. No one's coming. Your food and shelter all taken care of. You have any kind of art materials you want and reference. Do you paint, even though no one's ever going to see it except you?
Yes, I don't think I could stop painting. It's just part of who I am. Like even if nobody sees it, I feel like now that I'm developing more into myself, into the type of work that I want to do. I've always painted for myself, but there's been moments where I'm kind of like, well, what if they don't like this, or maybe they like that, and I've kind of pushed that aside now, and been more about just paint what you want to paint.
Yeah.
And yeah, and forget about how people will react to it, you know. So yeah, if I were there and everything was taken care of, I would just keep painting. Yeah,
Do you
like I
think
would
you'd paint
paint
the
the
same
sunset.
kind of thing? Sorry, yeah, what were we going to say?
Oh, oh, I would paint like the sunset or the ocean, or
Okay.
things from that sprouted from my own mind. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So, if there was one underlying theme to all your work, what do you think it would be?
Um, yeah, I think it would be about inner strength. I think really that's the main thorough line throughout all of it. Because yes, you have the themes of rebirth and transformation, but you also have like I put together a grouping of my paintings recently, looking for that one thing that they had in common.
Hmm.
And most of them, it's about that. It's about inner strength, about overcoming obstacles, overcoming trauma, or just overcoming like circumstances that you can't control. And yeah, and having that inner strength, finding that in you, and overcoming it through that, like that sense of resilience. So I think that's the main thing that they have in common.
Yeah, right. And painting in the way that you do, which is kind of like an act of self examination. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, have you learned more about yourself in the process?
Yes. So I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was, and I'm also more capable, and that I have a lot to give, a lot to offer, a lot to give, and yeah, a lot of value to offer to the world. And that's all through painting. Like painting for me, it's kind of like it's therapeutic, where you sit down, you have no other distractions, and it's just you and the painting, and it's an exploration of self, but also an exploration of what you're capable of, and what ideas you want to express to the world, your own unique viewpoint.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that that has a lot of value because none of us are the same. We all think differently. We all see things differently. So I think expressing that it has a lot of value. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And on the spiritual, mystical side of things, have you discovered things there as well?
I feel like I'm still in the process with that. Yeah. Because like I do have two sides of myself. I have the very analytical side, and then I have the more intuitive side. And I think because of the pandemic, I had to really rely on my analytical side because it was all about survival. Like, let's not catch COVID, please. you know? So I really relied on that analytical side of myself. And now I'm trying to regain that balance by going more towards my intuitive side. So I do feel like I'm very intuitive. Um, that part of my creativity comes from that, from my intuition, and that by exploring that more fully. And the biggest thing for me has been like learning to handle uncertainty and holding that tension of the uncertainty and yeah, embracing that and not needing to know what's going to happen or not needing to know how this is going to turn out, just letting things flow. That has been a big part of me finding that balance again towards my intuition. This is
Yeah.
very, yes, very magical. you know, it's like like it's the magical aspect of life, which the logic and the analytical brain is just like, no, it's what you see and what you hear and what you can touch. That's it. That's reality. Where your intuition is more like there's a deeper layer there. There's more going on underneath the surface that you can't see or hear or touch. You just got to have faith in it and just let it flow. So that's what I've learned so far through my spiritual explorations, basically. And yeah, just I'm just trying to keep practicing that because that's also helped a lot with my anxiety as well. Yeah.
Lovely. The art business or the business side of art often comes up on the podcast. What's your experience of that been? How are you getting on with it?
It's been tough. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's tough. I mean, it's good, but it's tough because you have to balance so many things. What's helped me a lot is getting a VA, a virtual assistant. So she helps me out with the social media posting, with the yeah, mostly social media, video editing. So I give her like the raw videos and then she puts them together and then post them for me. That has been a major time saver because
Mm,
right now I'm posting to like three different platforms and that's a lot.
it is.
So yeah, so I would like I'm still answering because I like to have like direct contact with people. So I still answer the comments myself. But in terms of the posting, she's the one that puts together the videos and then posts them. And yeah, she does such a great job. Like I love how she edits the videos. So, yeah, it's great. But in
So
terms of
how
like
did you find her?
oh, because I have a business coach as well, Lisa Sahilla. So hi, Lisa. um, so she has a program called Scale Up Support, I think it's called, and that's all the program that she runs with VAs. And then if you need a VA, then you can go and talk to them, and they can assign a VA for you.
Right.
And yeah, and it'd be like on a monthly basis, like you pay them for like every month, and every month they do work for you. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's been super helpful because it's a lot of things. You have to think about social media, keeping up with the algorithm, which is another yeah. The algorithm. which I kind of have like a love-hate relationship with the algorithm. um, Also, the admin side of things. If a painting sells, you have to think about, okay, customer service, packing the painting, making sure that it gets there. Um, Also, like making sure that the customer, the client, the collector is happy, all those things. Applying to shows, applying to competitions, all of that stuff. And if you're not careful, it can be overwhelming, and
Mm.
it'll drive you nuts. So what I try to do is like time blocking. So every day
Mm.
I look at my calendar and I go, okay, from here to here, I'm just gonna focus on admin stuff, and then from here to here, I'll focus on painting, or I'll have a whole weekend full of painting, and then during the week, I'll work on, say, like preparing online courses or working on a program that I'm going to put out, things like that, so that you're not overwhelmed. Because if not, it's way too much, and yeah, and
Yeah.
also yeah, like and getting help too if you can. Like having the VA has really helped me to not
Yeah.
get overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Say the name of your coach again. She sounds great.
Um, Lisa Sahia with
How do you spell
a
this surname?
surname Zahiyya.
Okay. And how'd you
Mhm.
find her?
Mostly online. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, good for you.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, everybody sees these people go past online, and there's so many of them that it's easy to kind of go, oh, it's too hard. I don't know if this one is for real or if it's just hype or whatever. So good for you
Hmm.
for, taking a risk and trying it out and finding it helpful, because,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. It's so overwhelming, all this stuff. And the all the platforms are fighting with each other. So one
Hmm.
comes into prominence, and another one goes, should I be on TikTok? Should I be on YouTube? Maybe I should be doing shorts. Maybe I should, and then if I do shorts, are very similar to reels, are very similar to TikTok. Do I, you could spend like 2 hours just
Yeah.
uploading one video to four platforms.
Hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, like, each one of them has their own different requirements. So, for example, Instagram, you can't have videos that are more than a minute 30 long, for example. And then on
Yeah,
TikTok, you can. So, if you're going to have a video that you're posting to the two platforms, then you got to shorten one so that you can put it on
yeah,
Instagram. It's a lot of little itty bitty details.
I know. Yeah, I
And
didn't
yeah,
realize it was a minute and a half. I thought it was just a minute on Instagram.
it's probably a minute though. Yeah, I don't
I know it's a
remember.
minute. It's a
In
minute on YouTube. The shorts on YouTube. That you
Okay.
can't
Yeah.
go over on a minute on those for sure. You can get
Hmm.
away with about 10 seconds over a minute on reels. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exhausting.
it's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's really good. So, what sort of price are your paintings selling for these days?
Usually it depends on the size. So right now I have some at a Bend gallery in Denver that
Mm-hmm.
are between 800 to 2,000. So those are smaller pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Medium-sized pieces can go from like 2,000 to like 5,000. So the
Yeah,
bigger the piece, the higher
yeah,
the price. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
How have you got on with galleries and getting represented by galleries and just that whole side of the
Yeah.
business?
The business. Well, right now I'm not represented by any gallery. Like I'm more of an independent artist, but I have
Mm-hmm.
shown work in the Bend Gallery, in 33 Contemporary,
Mm-hmm.
also here locally in MIFA Gallery that's
Mm-hmm.
close by. And yeah, I think, you know, it's just little by little getting your foot in the door and submitting to shows, and also like being part of Poets Artist has helped a lot. Poets Artist with Didi Menendez, and
Mm-hmm.
she's been super helpful in getting these opportunities, not just for me but for other artists in the group. And yeah, I think it's just little by little, like working with them, establishing the relationship, seeing if it's a good fit, because it's kind of like dating where you try them out and then you say do I get along with you? Yes, cool, okay. If not, well, that's okay. We'll keep looking. It's all right. No hard feelings.
It's not you,
It's
it's
not.
me.
It's me. Yeah.
I don't like you.
But it's totally fine. No hard feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm. But yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I would like to have gallery representation because I feel like with that, um, it's more marketing towards your work versus being independent. But it also
Hmm.
depends on the gallery and what they need, from their artists and their aesthetic and things like that. So again, it's kind of like a relationship where you see like how you interact with each other,
Yeah,
and yeah, if it's something that can grow. Yeah.
yeah. Very good. Do you have a big art dream you'd like to achieve before you die?
um Really showing internationally in a museum. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the Louvre. But
Okay, good.
yeah.
Good to be clear about these things.
But yeah, I think showing internationally in galleries or in a museum,
Hmm.
because then it would feel like I'm not showing just here in the US, like it's having like my shown is being working, it's been showing around the world, and that would be kind of like a mind blown kind of moment. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Does the Louvre show artists who are still alive?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think
Me
so.
neither. They probably have a little room somewhere at the front where they have, these are the living artists.
It's like off the
Um,
corner from the Mona Lisa, they have like contemporary artists right there.
yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been in many years, but I don't remember there being any kind of. Everybody was gone. you know.
Yeah, it's like beautiful works, but yeah, they're all dead now. But yeah.
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 What's the biggest challenge you're facing at the moment as an artist?
Um, Managing multiple income streams, because right
Mm.
now yeah, like with the pandemic, it just threw my finances into a tailspin for obvious reasons. And it's better now, but I'm still struggling with like managing all those income streams so that I can get a solid footing again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so like showing in galleries. I also have online courses that I'm putting out. I'm also thinking of doing like an artist mentorship program so that it'd be
Mm.
more like a long-term thing, like 6 months,
Yeah.
where people would like they would learn about like the techniques, the materials, like the basics of oil painting and figure drawing. Then there'd be
Yeah.
another section where it's all about how to find your style and how to formulate ideas for your work. And then another section being art business. So that would be like 6 months of that. That
Yeah.
would be
That
like,
sounds great.
yeah, because I feel like people, it is overwhelming. And there's a lot of information out there, and sometimes for somebody that's just starting out, it's like where do I even begin?
Yeah.
you know? And it's good to have a mentor. Like when I was in Puerto Rico while I was getting my undergrad, I also had two mentors. I had Luis Borrero and Amberlia Koppel. And Luis runs an art school in San Juan, Atelier San Juan, and that's where I first started to learn the basics of figurative painting and drawing,
Mm.
like
Mm.
light logic and like drawing still lifes and like portraiture, all of those things. And that really helped me a lot. It gave me like a good foundation for when I went to LCAT, and I wasn't as lost because I already had that base to draw
Mm.
from.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important to have a mentor, somebody that can help you and guide you and show you the ropes, basically.
Yeah.
Because one other thing I realized that you can't do this alone. Like it's a tough job. It can be tough. Like I love it. I love being an artist, but there are moments that are tough. So having a mentor that you can talk to about these things is super helpful. It doesn't make you feel so alone and so
Yeah.
overwhelmed by everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Lovely.
that's one of the things that I want to offer people is that through that program. And yeah, just also prints, selling small pieces, things like that. Yeah. So I'm still learning how to manage it all so that it becomes almost like a journey for people to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, going like from social media over to say like taking a course with me and then a mentorship, or yeah, just having that journey for them so that they can like have those different aspects of things that I can offer them and help them, because really it's about helping them like be the artist that they want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What other streams of income have you got?
Well, right now I'm also teaching at Miami-Dade College in Kendall.
Mm-hmm.
That's close to Miami. Yeah, working there part time. That's also been super helpful. Yeah, I really enjoy teaching there. Yeah, the students are very motivated, and yeah, it's fun. It
Mm.
is, and it's just funny because when I first started, when I went to LCAD getting my degree, and we took a pedagogy class, and I was terrified because this is me like being super shy, and then they're telling us, okay, you're going to get in front of the class and you're going to teach us all a lesson, and you're going to be recorded, and then you're going to see how you teach from that recording. Like, okay. So through that recording, you get to see all the mannerisms, like you wave your hands
Yeah. Yeah.
around a lot, or how you speak. And it is very helpful because it shows you that. But at the same time, it's like so embarrassing. It's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that I did that with my hands so much, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that sort of thing. So I was a little bit scared about teaching at first, but then I just started doing it, and like practice makes perfect, and now I really enjoy it, and I've gotten over like my fear of public speaking. And like recently, like talking to a class of nearly 50 students, where before that would have freaked me out a lot. And now I'm able to do that. So that's another thing that has really helped my self-confidence a lot is doing that through
Mm.
teaching. And I really do enjoy it because I see students that are really motivated and have the potential and the talent, and I can't help but root for them and want to help them as much as I can. So
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lovely. What springs to mind, and this is straight out of the Ashley Longshore playbook. You know Ashley Longshore? She's
Mm-hmm.
been on the
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is your work seems like it would be really good to have a collaboration with a like ceramicist or something like that. I could sort of see your work on ceramics.
Oh,
Seen,
interesting.
yeah, like Ashley Longshore did that as well with I think she had a teapot line. I'm not saying yours should be teapots, of course, but yeah, I could. There's something about the color scheme and the gold and everything. I think that would look really nice on as a collaboration with the ceramicist. You know.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but now that you're saying it, it's like, huh. Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Okay, this is my last question.
Mm-hmm.
I ask this to everyone who comes on the podcast. If there's one thing you could pass on to future generations, what would it be?
Um, to realize the importance of your own voice, to not let people make you feel small or try to silence your voice, because your voice is important. And that's a lesson that I've had to learn, because I've had people in my life trying to like make me feel small or make me feel less than. And through a lot of like self-awareness and exploration and trying and healing all of that, that's one of the things that I realized, like, you have a voice and it's important, and don't be afraid to speak your truth and to use your voice. That I think to me is one of the most important things that you can do as an artist and as a person, even if people don't agree with you, even if they say, oh, you suck, you know, like, doesn't matter. As long as you speak your truth, that's what matters. So that's what I would pass on.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's lovely. It reminds me of that that Maya Angelou quote, speak your truth even though your voice shakes. You know that one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, my voice has shaken a lot in the past, but yeah, I still do it. Like, it's important. Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, look, it's been lovely chatting with you. I think your paintings are beautiful. I think I really appreciate, there's a sort of quality of honesty about your paintings and directness that's very arresting. You know, I can't think of one that doesn't do that in one way or another, where it just sort of stops me and there's something communicated, something very honest and true communicated in your work. And that's rare and beautiful, I think. And yeah, and it's been lovely to sort of get to know you a little bit and hear where you're coming from with it. I sort of feel like you're just getting started as well. Like, even though your work is great, I really look forward to seeing what's coming as well.
Thank you so much. That's very sweet. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
And I do feel like that way too. Like, now is when I'm starting to really develop things and get started. And yeah, I can't wait to see how it all develops. But yeah, thank you for having me here too. This has been great. Like, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
No, you're welcome. My pleasure. Okay, well, I keep in touch with everyone for Zoom tea or whatever. So I'm sure we'll keep in touch. But yeah, for now, we'll say goodbye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
I've never felt this good in my entire life. Make me some spaghetti.
Actually, I'd prefer a cup of tea. A cup of tea would be lovely. So yeah, just a little reminder, mainly because every second or third person who becomes a patron has got in touch with me and said, you know what, I've been listening to your podcast for ages, and I didn't become a patron, not because I don't have the money, not because I don't think it's great, I just didn't get around to it. So this is a little friendly reminder that if you'd like to be a patron, you'd like to buy me a cup of tea, go to patreon.com/John Dalton, gently does it, all one word, or follow the link in the show notes to become a patron. I would really appreciate it if you could do that, particularly if you've been meaning to and you just haven't got around to it. It would be great. It would mean a lot to me. All right. Thank you. Bye.
We are the Argyle Pimps. So buy us a drink. We're better than you thought, but not as good as we think. We are the Argyle Pimps. So buy us a drink. Come on, buy us a drink. Come on, buy us a drink. We are the Argyle Pimps. So buy us a drink. We're better than you thought, but not as good as we think. We are the Argyle Pimps. So buy us a drink. Come on, buy us a drink. Come on.